Okay, it's Monday, which means against my better judgment, it's time to go to Reddit and see what we can find in this hive of scum and villainy. So I've been to the Overwatch University subreddit ahead of time, just scraped all the questions off the first whole page, and we're gonna answer them now, while some footage of Grand Blue Fantasy Versus plays in the background, because it's a better game than Overwatch. We missed it yesterday, so we get the squid, and you get my son for like 2 seconds. So it's a double whammy today. So first question is, when to use bio-grenade offensively? As much as possible. Because being purple is pretty terrible, all told. Like, no one enjoys being purple in this video game. So, the thing is that your teammates do need to be in a position to capitalize on it. Ideally, you're hitting people on both your team and the enemy team, so, one of the best case scenarios is like your Reinhardt countercharges their Reinhardt, and then you can get both Reinhardts, right? And then you pretty much win the team fight, more or less. It is almost that simple, like most times. But, you know, anytime you can just like slide the grenade past their shield and like get their main tank with it, that's always really good. Their main tank not being able to be healed is pretty terrible, all told. And then if they're using like Transcendence, or we've used Graviton, Earth Shatter, you know, that's the fucking time to go, brother. That's the time to throw that grenade right into all of the men. But just, like, to be honest with you, the bio-grenade, like, not being able to heal your teammates is incredibly crippling in a game like Overwatch, where the damage comes fast, and the healing also comes fast. Sorry, I'm going to, future me will probably have to edit that part. Oh, how terrible. That's not current me's problem, though. So, yeah, just try and use it as much as possible. The risk is that, like, you end up, not having it when you need it for your teammates, but, like, to be honest, if you got the enemy team purple in a good situation, it probably doesn't matter anyway, because you probably just won the team fight. But yeah, like, try and get as many people on both teams as you can. Ideally, you get your tank and their tank, then you get both best of both worlds. So, next up is Moira a hard counter to Genji? No. But I can see why you would think that she is. Especially if you were to play in, like, a lower SR. You're gonna, like, kill the Genji when he comes for you, like, 9 times out of 10, if the Genji is bad. So, it is easy to see why you would think that Moira is a hard counter to Genji, but no. She is, just, like, the best, like, she doesn't counter flankers, really, but, like, she's, like, the best support you can pick versus them, as far as the main healers go, because she just doesn't really die to flankers. It's very hard to. You don't always kill the flanker, especially if it's, like, Doomfist, you know, or Tracer. Genji players tend to make very poor short-term decisions that end up impacting them quite badly. Because, if you, dash into the Moira, and then you don't kill the Moira, you also now don't have your dash to get back out, so you might just die to the Moira. Well, not necessarily, depending on, like, the geometry of the map. You might be able to, like, scuttle up a wall or something, but if you, like, dash to Moira and you've got nowhere to get out, she's gonna sip you to death. She's gonna throw her orb at you, and she's gonna sip you, and you're not gonna be too happy about it. So, because, people have a tendency to do that as Genji, you tend to get a lot of kills on the Genji as Moira. But she is, like, the best one you can pick versus that kind of hero, just because of the self-sustain and self-peel. That's Moira's utility. You know, people like to say Moira has no utility. No, she does have utility. The utility is just that she is extremely survivable, you know. You never have to worry about Moira on your team, which you would have to worry about, like, your Ana or your Baptiste. You don't really have to worry about Moira. She can take care of herself. So no, she's not a hard counter, but she's like, you could go to a soft counter. I'd be prepared to go to soft counter, but she's definitely not a hard counter. So next up is, as a new player trying to learn support, what should I focus on and who should I play to learn the most I can before hopping into ranked? The best one you can probably pick to learn support is Mercy, because you can worry about the more fundamental aspects of the game without having to worry about the more technical aspects that you would have to worry about with someone like Anna or Baptiste or Moira even, you know. Mercy's a much more basic experience as far as supports go, so you can learn the fundamental aspects of it, like target prioritization, positioning, and stuff like that, without worrying about, like, aiming, like, trying to snipe your mans, without being, like, super vulnerable to divers, and not, like, Moira's got, that was a very interesting trick that guy just went for right there. Like, the other supports all have something a little bit more weird to be doing. Like, Moira is a very unorthodox experience as far as the supports go. Baptiste and Anna, while you're trying to learn the fundamentals of the game, you then also have to learn things like how to use their somewhat unusual abilities. You have to worry about, like, physically aiming your healing, which you don't have to worry about as Mercy. So you can just focus on these basic aspects, learn that, and then branch out from there. Zenyatta would also be a good one to go with to start with for similar reasons. You can worry about things like target prioritization and positioning without the more weird aspects of them. And Zenyatta would also teach you more ult execution than Mercy would. Because Valkyrie, there's a pretty large margin for error on where you use Valkyrie, whereas Transcendence you're using for very specific purposes, so you'd learn a bit more of that as well with Zen, and it's more basic, you know. And then once you're more accustomed to the fundamentals of the game, you can branch out to the other supports that, to be honest, you're probably more interested in playing than Mercy. People are not typically super interested in learning how to play Mercy. Some people are. Mercy's quite fun to play, but people are usually drawn to, like, Anna, aren't they? Like, let's be realistic, you know? People want to play Anna, they want to play Moira, they probably don't want to play Mercy. Because Mercy, there's more engaging experiences as far as gameplay goes than Mercy. To be honest with you, though, I'd rather play, like, Mercy than Lucio. I find Lucio to be just sinfully boring to play as, personally. A lot of people think that Lucio is the only fun support, so, you know, I'm in the minority with this opinion, but God, Lucio's so boring. Just, like, run around being a fucking aura bot, like, oh god, it's absolutely dreadful. I always like playing, like, a bit of a segue, I always like playing against Gran in this game, because the people that play Gran just like to throw their abilities full screen at you and hope you die. So, like, as soon as you just block versus Gran, they don't know what to do. Like, this guy doesn't know what to do, because I'm just sat there waiting for him to make the mistake, so he's like, like, it's always very funny to me. Low ranks in fighting games, here's what you do. You just block, and you let the other person defeat themselves, and you didn't have to do anything. You just stand there, block, they'll do something unsafe sooner or later, and then you get them. I should be getting this guy more, to be honest with you, but it's okay. We can just call Yggdrasil at the end. Look at that. Hey, alright, you're gonna dodge that? No problem, brother. We'll do this one, because it has a lot of chip damage. People panic so much when you summon Yggdrasil. It's great. Anyway. Yeah, so Mercy and Zen are pretty much the best ones you could pick to, like, learn how to play support. They'll teach you the fundamentals without worrying about weird aspects of the game, and then you branch out after that. And Lucio is fucking boring. by the way. Dreadfully boring. Dreadfully boring. Jet Set Radio was a good game, you know? As soon as they implement, like, a graffiti mechanic for Lucio, I'll be more into it at that point. He's only, like, 50% of Jet Set Radio right now, and that's not enough for me. So, next up is... I've started playing comp as Mercy, and was wondering who I should be prioritizing as I play, and when should I use damage boost as opposed to healing. You should be trying to use the damage boost as much as you can when you're playing Mercy. All supports are this way, where none of them are really about the amount of healing that output they have, because if it was about that, there would never be any reason to pick anyone other than Moira, who just has the highest raw healing output of all of them. But Moira is not just hands down the best support, so it's clearly can't all be about the healing. You're trying to leverage your utility as much as you can as any support, because ultimately this is a game about killing people, you know? People like to say it's a game about capturing objectives, but you can't do that until you've killed the enemy team. So, no, it is a game about killing people. So, if you can facilitate killing the bad men, you should be facilitating killing the bad men as much as you can. Which, for Mercy, entails using damage boost. And for prioritization, ideally you're playing Mercy as an off-healer, because she's nerfed Mercy a few times. She's not much of a main healer anymore. This worked like 0 times, and yet he still continued to just randomly supermate this many matches. This is the 4th game I played against this guy, and he still is just like, it'll work one of these days, I'm sure. It didn't work. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so ideally you're playing Mercy as an off-healer rather than a main healer. So you should be prioritizing the non-tanks, and the main healer should be prioritizing the tanks, because the main healers output more healing than the off-healers. So you want them to be the ones taking care of the tanks rather than the off-healer. Like, if Zen has to heal Reinhardt, oh god, what a tragically depressing experience that is. Oh my god. Lucio doesn't have Amp It Up, and he's trying to heal up the fucking Roadhog right now. Oh god, so it'd take fucking hours, Roadhog. Jesus Christ, you could go and find a health kit before I've healed you. Whereas Moira, hey, bzz, full health again, right? So, but while the main healers are worrying about them, you worry about the lower health heroes, because you output lower healing, you should be healing the people that have the lower hit point pool, because you'll fill them up faster than you would with the people with the big health pools. But that being said, like, whoever looks like they're gonna die at most risk of dying is typically the highest priority as well. It's hard to give, like, set rules for who you prioritize as a healer. Jesus Christ, I forgot about Solid Gold Basaraga. Look at this guy. Such a bright man. It's hard to give set rules for who you should be prioritizing, because so much of this is down to in the moment rather than anything else. I remember way back with TF2, a pro player in that game said that Medic, who is more or less one-to-one with Mercy, to be honest with you, except he can't fly. Pro player that played Medic said, Medic is by far the easiest hero or character in the game to play, but the hardest one to teach, because so much of it is just, like, in-the-moment decision-making. And it's hard to tell people who is the most important person to heal outside of specific situations, right? So, like I say, you want to prioritize the lower health heroes, but, like, if your main tank looks like he's gonna die, you're gonna be healing the main tank regardless, because you obviously don't want him to die, do you? Regardless of if you're the main healer or not, you're like, I don't want this guy to die. And if you're, like, the main healer, and you see one of the lower hit point heroes is dying, you're like, well, obviously I'm gonna heal him, right? Generally, people that are in critical health are higher priority than people that are not in critical health, because they're the ones that are more close to immediately dying, you know, tying into the previous point. But simultaneously, these things are not created equal either, because suppose you see Roadhog in critical health. Roadhog in critical health is a significantly different story to Soldier in critical health, right? Because Roadhog in critical health still has like hundreds of hit points, whereas Soldier in critical hit points is now below 100 hit points, right? So even those two things are not created equal, because you might look at critical health Reinhardt, critical health McCree. The critical health McCree is probably more important than the critical health Reinhardt, because the critical health McCree is closer to death than the Reinhardt is. We didn't watch the other Vasaraga game. It's okay. It was much the same. So, you know, there's so many things to bear in mind, but, like, those are the kind of things to bear in mind, basically. You know, as Mercy, trying to heal the lower health point heroes rather than making the main healer do it, but don't, like, go, well, I'm never gonna heal the main tanks either, you know, like, you gotta do both. And do just try to be damage boosting as much as you can. The amount, like, this is one of the few things you can do as Mercy to really improve, like, your efficiency overall, is just be damage boosting more frequently. So do try to do that as much as you can. So, next up. What are the most important stats that you can see? It's deaths, as far as I'm concerned. Deaths, I think I do want to point out, so this question was in a thread. It was a thread that had exactly 2 responses to it. And they were extreme opposite ends of the spectrum. Because the first one was deaths, and the other one was damage per 10 seconds. Damage per 10 seconds is not that helpful, okay? So I just thought that very funny, because I read that one, and I was like, this is the guy that is like, how did I lose? I had 5 gold medals, you know? Like, I don't understand. Deaths to me are the only stat that's worth tracking, because it's just the only stat that can never lie to you. It is always better to have died less. There are no exceptions to this. Less deaths is always better than more deaths. Whereas your damage done, your healing done, your eliminations, your objective time, your objective kills, all of these things, yeah, your weapon accuracy, you need to take all of these things on a game-by-game basis, because what a good amount of healing or damage or accuracy for that game can be very different to the next game. The example I always give is with weapon accuracy, where if you were playing, like, against a team that's like Reinhardt, Roadhog, Doomfist, Reaper, right? Then having an accuracy of like 50-60% is usually good, but versus that kind of team comp, you'd be like, well, these are all people that are very easy to hit, so that's not really shocking that you have like 60% accuracy, because they're not doing much weird to avoid you, right? Like, they're all pretty easy characters to hit for the most part. Whereas if you were playing a game against, like, Genji, Tracer, Zarya, Hammond, you know, Lucio, then suddenly, like, 40% accuracy is, like, not great. That suddenly you'd say, like, well, that's actually pretty good versus that kind of team comp, because it's like Tracer, Genji, Lucio, you know, you have significantly harder to hit enemies in this game. So suddenly your lower accuracy becomes more of what you would expect in that game, right? Similarly, damage-wise, right? If you're, like, first off, this varies so much between hero to hero that it's hard to quantify what a good damage would be for a game anyway. Like, how much time did you spend playing Junkrat, right? Like, alright, you got gold damage, you're playing Widow now. Were you actually playing mostly Junkrat up till this point, you know? Like, that affects things. And, like, what are you playing against? Because if you're playing against, like, Hammond, Roadhog, Mei, and then there's, like, Moira, Anna, you're gonna have a fucking high damage number by the end of that game, almost regardless of what you do, because all of those people are big spongy mans, and they're getting big spongy heals also from the Moira and Ana. So you're like gonna have high damage almost regardless of what you do. So you gotta take all of those things game by game, and you gotta be like honest with yourself and say things like, well, I had like 70% accuracy. How much time was spent shooting Reinhardt's shield? You know, you gotta think things like that, and you gotta be honest. Whereas if you look at the end of the game and you had 1 death, that is just objectively better than having 8 deaths. You know? Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The game you died less in was the game you did better than the game you died a lot in. That's why it's the only stat I worry about. You know, a lot of people do worry about their other stats, and for them that's a measure of seeing how much they've improved over time. They see their averages steadily climb, and you know, that is what's exciting for them about playing the game, you know, seeing their stats slowly improve, in which case, like, more power to you. Like, you know, you do whatever makes you happy, brother. If you enjoy tracking all of these stats and, like, measuring your growth over time, you know, more power to you. You do whatever the fuck you want, but you do have to, like, be honest with yourselves about these things with regards to stats like damage and accuracy. You know, you have to consider the game you played in as well as just the raw number itself. Because I could throw something out there like, well, you should average, like, 1k per minute healing as Ana, whatever, you know? But, like, some games, that's just not gonna be feasible, and some games, it's feasible that you could do, like, triple that, you know? Like, you need to be honest about these things anytime you're tracking stats. But deaths is the most important one. It's always better to have lower deaths. So, next up, and this is the last question for this week, is slightly shorter. Weren't so many questions I had much to say on this week. Feel like I say that most weeks, to be honest with you. How important is team comp in low ranks, and can I one-trick a character? You can absolutely one-trick a character all the way up, brother. I've seen, not that long ago, like a few months ago, there was a guy that was in top 500, and it shows you, like, their 3 most played heroes if they're in top 500. My man had 1. My man was the #1 ranked support, and he had just Bridget there. Like, you can one-trick all the way up, brother, as long as you're good enough with that hero. It doesn't matter. So you can one-trick a character anywhere. It doesn't matter what rank you're in. You go all the fucking way, dog. You do whatever you want to do. As long as you're playing to win, fuck, I don't give a shit who you're playing. Team comp in low ranks doesn't matter. Team comp, to be, like, 100% honest with you, team comp frequently doesn't matter, all the way up to, like, probably even higher than this, but I'll say diamond conservatively. To be honest with you, team comp doesn't really matter until you get all the way up to, like, masters, but, like, we'll be a little conservative and we'll just say diamond. It doesn't matter. Like, all that really matters is if you know how to play the hero that you're playing, and that's it. You know, there are some things that do still matter, lower than diamond, like the combination of tanks and healers is the most important part. Like, it is not good to have, like, Lucio, Zenyatta as your healers outside of very specific circumstances, right? It is not good to have Zarya, Diva as your tanks basically ever. You know, these things are true universally across ranks, but outside of that, it's not especially important. You can pretty much disregard it, as long as you're playing a hero that you know how to play. And this is the thing, anytime it comes to team comp, it is always better to play the hero that you know how to play, rather than the hero that is better, like, team composition-wise, that you don't know how to play. Because if you don't know how to play them, you're not going to leverage why they're good anyway, right? Like, if X is good in this team composition, but I don't play X, I won't be good at X in this team composition because I don't know what I'm doing on X, will I? And this is extremely true with counter picks, where people will, like, change to something to counter the other person that they don't know how to play, right? Commonly, this is something like, yeah, I changed to Sombra so I could counter Hammond. Do you know how to play Sombra? Probably not. Very few people do. So what does that mean? You fed a lot, like a lot. Just in case you thought there was nothing you can do versus Yggdrasil, my man, he dodged a lot of this shit. You know, Yggdrasil is not the win button as soon as people don't panic, pretty much. Luane can't die while Yggdrasil is on the field. My son almost, like, fell off of the table. Luane can't die while Yggdrasil is on the field, but the amount of times I have won a game because we have both been low health, I have summoned Yggdrasil, and the bad man has decided, well, I'll super as well. Which then smacks into Yggdrasil. I don't die because Yggdrasil is on the field, and then I kill him because he's in the recovery from his super. Happens all the time. It's incredible. Anyway, Overwatch though, right? Like, if you don't know how to counter somebody, like, if you don't know how to play the counter pick, you won't counter them, because you don't know how to leverage the part of their kit that counters their kit. So don't do stuff like that. Always just play the character that you know how to play. And this is why people can climb all the way up playing one character. They know how to play that one character in a large variety of situations, and they know, and, you know, they're not good in every situation, obviously. There's no hero that's like a one-size-fits-all. But they know how to play around the aspects of their kit that are weak, so when they're in these disadvantageous situations, they still know what to do to get as much efficiency out of their hero as they can, and as long as they're getting more efficiency out of their hero than the person on the other team as their equivalent, they're doing great. They're doing all they need to do. So yeah. Team comp's not important in low ranks, it's barely important in high ranks. You can one-trick a guy to the top 100. You fucking go, brother. Fucking love Luane. Fucking great character, dude. So that's the last question for today. So, now we've got to watch the rest of this game, and to be honest with you, we'll watch the next game as well. We'll finish, this is what we'll do with Versus. We'll finish the set that I played against the guy. Because you are, like, you do the set, and then it goes, alright, no more playing against that guy unless you rematch against him now. Which I don't really like, to be honest with you. When I play fighters, I like to just, if some guy beats me, I like to play against that guy for as long as he's prepared to sit there and beat my ass. Because that's how you get better at the game, you know? You can't do that in this video game. But, that's okay. To be fair, the ranking system is so different that if you could just sit here and, like, play against the one guy over and over again, you'd be able to just, like, ping-pong up and down the ranks so fast that it would be completely ridiculous as far as matchmaking goes. Because it's just like, you win 6 games, you've gone from A5 to A4, right? You're going to up a tier, you get 6 games in A1, puts you in another bracket, alright, you win the next 3 out of 5, you go up to the next bracket. Yeah, so I won this game, and then I continued playing him after that point, because it was like 2 in the morning, but this was the end of this set, which is where we'll stop. Lancelot players are also very fun, because they do some very silly things. I hope this is the game where I, like, just grabbed the guy out of his fucking wake-up move, but I think I might have stopped doing that by this point. They have a nice move. They teleport up into the air. There's invincible until they're, like, up in the air, and there's, like, 2 things they can do from there. One of them, you jump and grab him, you got him. It's amazing. And then the Lancelot player immediately is tilted. I enjoy playing Luane. He's very good at tilting the enemy team. Sorez comes out tomorrow. I like Sorez a lot as a character, so I'm gonna play him. But Luane is very fun, just because he's one of those characters that makes people mad. Because you start throwing your mans at them, literally, stand full screen, start eating your spaghetti to heal, they get mad. They'll immediately sprint across the whole world to get you. My son, what are you doing? What's the plan here? And then they, of course, panic when you summon Yggdrasil. It's great. Yeah, I know. It's true, isn't it? What is wrong with you? You've been so dramatic the last couple of days. Not to imply you aren't dramatic all the time. This is definitely the point where I stopped, like, doing that to the guy. But, you know, oh yeah, I'll mash more than you, brother. I will mash that button as hard as I possibly can. The other super also makes people panic a lot. Suddenly you stand on your two friends' shoulders and just run at them. That also makes them panic a lot, but I like to keep it for the upgraded super. Yggdrasil is just such a good move to have in your back pocket. So, anyway, as you would think, summoning the fucking Tree of Life, if it had pits, would be in real life. You know, that would be a pretty good trump card to pull out in the middle of a street fight, wouldn't it? So, there you go. So, thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. More than happy to answer. If you haven't already, you can join our Discord, ask questions more directly, have a conversation about them, or just shitpost of this. I've started streaming on Twitch Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, 8 PM EST to 11 EST. There's a link to the channel in the description. And if you managed to make it all the way through the video and somehow still enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for more content of middling quality in the future. And I hope you found the video helpful.